Welcome, Mention, and other fine folks to the Sunday Dispatch of the Black Letter, where we contemplate thoughts worth thinking. This is your spectator of the spectacle, coming to you live from deep inside the Upside Down. And the world is topsy-turvy, isn't it? Every day just seems to get something more weird happening. And I started to think today what we could do. Obviously, the title today is Peaceful Resistance, and I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, let's take a look here quickly at a few of the things going on. So here we have CNBC reporting that 1 in 4 Americans are skipping meals or relying on food donations during the coronavirus pandemic. And here's a picture of people lined up in cars to receive items through a food distribution drive hosted by local organizations in Conroe, Pennsylvania on May the 30th. Tens of millions of Americans unemployed, it's no surprise that many are facing shortfalls when it comes to purchasing food for their families during the coronavirus pandemic. Since February, 26% of Americans reported they or a member of their household have gone without meals or relied on charities or government programs to obtain groceries. So that's 1/4 of people, and includes about 1 in 8 adults who say they've cut down on the size of their meals or skipped them entirely because there wasn't enough money or food, as well as 13% who reported needing to visit a food bank or pantry for staples. Here we can see the percent who say since February they or anyone else in their household did each of the following: either cut the size of their meals because there wasn't enough food, visited a food bank or food pantry charity, and applied for or received benefits from the federal SNAP program. So if you've experienced any of these, you're 1 in 4. This is crazy. I mean, in the arguably richest country in the world, you have 1 in 4 people who need support just to get the basic food to eat and to live. It is a black mark on our cultural soul, that's for sure. People don't go to a food bank for no reason. They go to a food bank when they've run out of food, Swank, a trained labor economist, says. She adds that food insecurity is hitting children disproportionately hard. Kids are skipping meals or not getting fed appropriate nutrition at a critical time in their lives. And that's very true. Anyway, interesting article, and goes on a little bit about what's happening. But honestly, if we thought that the economy was doing well up until, say, the end of last year, I think we were kidding ourselves. It's been propped up by crazynomics or something like that. I don't know what you would call it. Schizonomics. We need to come up for a name for this, because honestly, we're just being led by the hand to the fleecing of the great flock. The fleecing of the great flock by the banksters and other gangsters in office. Unfortunately, I think this smoke and mirrors is starting to clear, and we're starting to see really who the puppet masters are and how this whole system is built on a house of cards foundation, really. Here we have, this is Bloomberg Quint. I think this is talking about the Indian experience. RBI surveys point to plummeting confidence, rising inflation fears. RBI is the Reserve Bank of India. So this article is specifically about India, but I thought it was interesting because it's most likely similar around the world, I would suggest, especially in North America here with us. Consumer confidence fell to the lowest in more than 6 years in May as people feared falling incomes and poorer employment prospects. Simultaneously, consumers feared an increase in prices of food products, amongst others. And I've seen that too. I've started to see things start to creep up in prices at the produce. This is the lowest level since March, that the consumer confidence collapsed in May to the lowest level since March of 2014. I know we've been talking about deflation, inflation, what's going to happen here, but I think we're seeing both. I think we're seeing inflation clearly, all this money that the Treasury and the Federal Reserve especially is pumping into the markets is going straight into the assets, into the 1% class, and that's why the stock market has lost tethering with reality. And at the same time, we're seeing inflation in what I would consider in crucial goods, or goods that you can't necessarily do without. So food, for example. Those of you who do eat meat have probably noticed A, shortages, and B, perhaps price gouging there. Even from my perspective, I've noticed that the pound of potatoes, or a bag of potatoes, I think 3 or 5 pound bag of potatoes that I bought recently was about 50% more expensive than it had been just several weeks ago. So we've seen both, and I'm just not sure how this is going to end, but I don't believe it'll end well. Jim Cramer is warning young people that day trading in speculative stocks is not investing. It's a little disheartening to see all the $1 to $3 stocks that people are gunning, Cramer said on Squawk on the street. So penny stocks nowadays usually include those that are under $5 a share. Online brokers have reported a flurry of new activity from younger clients during the coronavirus pandemic. And honestly, this is not unexpected. I mean, where else can people get any sense of interest on their money? I think people are starting to save money, as we know. But where can you put it? Bonds won't give you anything. Savings account, bank, forget it. And folks, I think, are concerned about the banks long term, even with the FDIC, so the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I mean, I certainly don't want to keep too much money in the bank. And where else can you put it? Stock market seems to be doing well, but I think that's a fool's errand. And that's setting yourself up for some real wailing and gnashing of teeth. Okay, here we go. It's an article in The Economist talking about inflation and whatnot. So it says here, tomorrow's problem. Don't worry about inflation yet. Monetary stimulus is unlikely to spark sustained price rise while labor markets remain depressed. Central banks created so much money in so little time. Never before have they done that. In the past 3 months, America's monetary base has grown by 1.7 trillion, and the Federal Reserve has hoovered up assets using new money. The Fed is buying junk bonds. The Bank of Japan has stepped up its purchases of equities and could soon own over a fifth of many large Japanese companies. This, folks, is fascism. Perhaps friendly fascism, but it's fascism nonetheless. Let's have a look-see. Okay, so here we have a definition of fascism. You can see that here we'll just highlight this and have a read of it. Often capitalized, fascism is a political philosophy, movement, or regime, such as that of the fascisti, that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. So arguably we are seeing friendly fascism in the States. We are seeing forcible suppression of opposition with the current riots and looting and the threat of the military. We're seeing a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader. Now, of course, we have democracy, but the current Trump White House is certainly dictatorial, I would suggest. But importantly here, this portion here, severe economic and social regimentation. And this economic regimentation is basically what the Fed and the Treasury are doing. They're bailing out the companies. In Japan, they're now buying equities, which means that basically you have the government controlling, in this case, in Japan, could own over a fifth of large Japanese companies, which means basically you have government owning the corporations, the largest corporations in Japan in this instance, and it's probably coming to a country near you, I'm sure of it. And that's fascism really, in however you want to call it, perhaps not a far-right fascism, but a friendly fascism nonetheless, and that is certainly worrying. So then it goes on to say about a whole bunch of things and why monetary inflation is not the problem right now, or currency inflation. Only after economies and job markets have healed will a sustained rise in inflation become a risk. And they talk about the velocity of money, which is an important concept, which explains why there isn't maybe so much inflation in most products, because people are saving their money, which means that the money is not getting around, it's not very liquid, it's not sloshing around in the economic pool, if you will. So we'll have inflation, but in the interim we're going to have a sort of deflation / inflation depending on different areas of the market. So I wanted to talk about, peaceful resistance. I think with everything wrong in the world today, what can we do as individuals to help create a better society, a more just and egalitarian society for ourselves in the future, instead of just continue being fleeced and robbed by the banksters and gangsters? And I think, the best thing we can do really is our own monetary policy. If each of us just took time just to focus on the essentials and stopped buying any unnecessary products or services that we don't need, I think we could bring the Fed and Treasury to their knees, honestly, because we won't be creating the liquidity, we won't be buying unnecessary nonsense and products that harm the environment that we need. I think this is an opportunity to really reset and to reevaluate how we want to go about our lives and what we want to do with our dollars. We really have immense power. I've heard that up to 70% of the American economy is basically funded, if not driven, by the American consumer. So if we can pull back on that a lot, if we can cut our spending by 50%, really put all that extra cash in savings, or in my instance, I'm probably going to be getting really into cryptocurrencies and precious metals, particularly silver, because I think silver is undervalued compared to gold currently. Then in that instance, what will happen is that there won't be the velocity of money out there, and the Fed will have to continue printing, and they'll notice that this is not working. The only thing it's doing is creating inflated asset bubbles for the 10%, the top 1%. And so in that case, eventually the stock market will have to crash, and we can help that happen if we stop putting the money there and we stop spending it frivolly. Anyway, these are just some thoughts to think about. Just the ideas I was tossing around in my head as a way for us to gain ownership about how to resist this diabolical overprinting of money and inflationary sort of fiat currency, which is no doubt going to come collapsing probably in the near term, or in the near future, I should say. Anyway, just something to think about. This is an easy, peaceful way to demonstrate against the system that we have, or the shitstem, and something just to think about. But let's end on a happy note. This is a 9-year-old, aims to be the youngest chess grandmaster ever. The prodigy, whose family fled Boko Haram, that's a Nigerian jihadist group, is climbing the ranks amid an internet chess boom. This chart doesn't make a lot of sense until you read the article, but basically this is the young fellow, Tanatalua Adewumi, I think, and you can see how he's improving up the ranks. So basically this is a ranking system. The higher up, the better you are. Usually at around 2,500 or so, as we'll see, you become a grandmaster. Beginners are at around 800 to 1,000 here, and you can see how well he's done. Shot right up, he's already over 2,000, climbing against another couple of his peers who have been playing longer than he has. There are plenty of reasons why Tanatalua Adewumi captured the world's attention in March 2019 after winning the New York State Chess Championship in his age group. 9-year-old Tani was living in a Manhattan homeless shelter, and he was a refugee. Tani's family had fled northern Nigeria and sought asylum in America in 2017 after being threatened by Boko Haram, a jihadist group. Oh, one more thing. When Tani took home the state championship trophy, he had been playing chess for only a year. Chess players are ranked by using the ELO system, as I mentioned up there. A beginner typically scores around 800, an average player 1,500, and a professional 2,200. Grandmasters score above 2,500. After this win a year ago, Tani was rated at 1,587, or 20th among 8-year-olds in America. Today he is rated at 2,059, number 3 among players his age, and on track to become number 1. Anyway, this is just a great little short article here in The Economist. It shows you the importance of not only providing help to those in need, because he was a refugee, but also in encouraging immigration and letting kids especially pursue their passions, whatever they might end up to be. I mean, there's good money to be made in chess, whether you know about that or not, but there are you can make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, if you're perhaps top 10 in the world, I would imagine. But I think the important thing that worries me too about the global inequality generally, and of course this current system we find ourselves in is only exacerbating that, is the squandered human potential that we're squandering, and that really concerns me. Folks in Africa or places in Asia where they live very poor, basically subsistence level, cannot really enjoy any other pursuits, right? They're more concerned with the immediate concerns in Maslow's hierarchy, such as food and shelter. So we have to get that as a foundation for everyone, and then we can allow all these other folks to explore their true potentials and to bring such great new products, services, and ideas to humanity. We really need that. So hopefully that's something to think about, how we can help create the society we want, where all talent has an opportunity to flourish. With that, I will leave you. Thanks for listening to me contemplate the thoughts I've been thinking. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. And until next time, remember, dum spiro, spero.